Welcome to a very special edition of World Changing Glasgow Conversation, and I'm joined today by our very own University of Glasgow Principal and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sir Anton Muscatelli. Anton, welcome.
Thanks, Rachel.
So today's discussion has been preempted really by the news last month of your departure in 2025. Can you maybe say a little bit about what's prompted your decision to leave the University of Glasgow after 16 years at the helm?
Well, thanks, Rachel. It was actually quite a difficult decision to make. From the start, when I took on a third term, as you know, in Glasgow, we have 5-year terms for Vice-Chancellors. When I took the decision to start a 3rd-year term, I said I wouldn't do a 4th term. I strongly feel that after 15, 16 years as Vice-Chancellor, probably you should think about stepping aside. I think it's a good time to look for new ideas and fresh ideas it's a difficult decision to take because I love Glasgow. As you know, I'm a Glasgow alum. I've had an association with this university for well over 40 years. But at the same time, at some point, you need to think when is the right time to go. And one of the key points for me was we're finishing our current strategic plan in 2025. We've finished the first phase of our capital plan. So for a variety of reasons, this seemed to be a good time. Next year is a good time to call a halt.
Yeah, and you mentioned just there, we are entering into a next strategic planning cycle. You will have overseen so many changes during your tenure as Principal and Vice-Chancellor at the University of Glasgow. What have been some of those big changes for the university, do you think?
Many. I think the one that for me is the most important is that we've become a much more global international university. If you go back 10, 15 years, if you look across the Russell Group, which we're a member of, we probably would have been, probably apart from one other university, the one that was least international, that really was mostly focused on domestic students. And there's nothing wrong with that, but becoming a global university is of huge benefit to our own students from Scotland and the UK who are in Glasgow. We are a genuinely bustling, thriving community. So that's one dimension. The other dimension is that we were probably not as strong as we could be in research and innovation back in 2009. And here we are, and after the Research Excellence Framework of 2021, we're, in terms of grade point average, we're top in Scotland, top 10 UK. We are a university that's well known for the innovation work that we do here in the city of Glasgow. So a number of dimensions, which I think shows that the university has really changed beyond recognition in the last 15 or so years.
Yeah, it absolutely has. And, if you were to try and capture what you think are the most critical priorities for the university in the future, what would they be as we start to develop out that next strategy?
Well, I think it's a really exciting time. As I said in my message to colleagues, these have been a very exciting 15 years, but I think there's more exciting times to come for the university. I think one of the key straplines we've used over the last few years, which I genuinely believe is part of our ethos, is that we are a world-changing university. We're the world-changing university, and we want to be a university for the world. And I think that is seen through the work that we're doing, both in terms of research and teaching, but it's also, I think, coming through the way in which we are pivoting some of our research and innovation towards some of the grand challenges. For instance, the work that we do on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I genuinely believe that in another 10 years or so, people will turn to Glasgow from anywhere in the world and say, this is genuinely a university that actually is for the good of the whole of humankind. And I think that's what I'd like to see in terms of ambition for the university in the next 10, 15 years.
And linked to that, really just the power of partnership, the understanding that we can only be the world-changing university and a university for the world if we are engaging meaningfully with our partners locally, nationally and internationally. And I guess that kind of reinforces the point that you made about the importance of being a civic anchor university, but also globally connected and with real international ambitions.
And that's hugely important. And again, that's something that's changed. You look back 15 years ago, yes, we had some international partnerships, but they were rather sporadic. They weren't really deep. We now have partners with some of the very best universities in the world, but we also are have deep partnerships with some of the universities in the global south where, you know, we have really meaningful relationships that are making a huge difference to communities all around the globe. And you've led some of this, Rachel, so actually it'd be, you know, be also something for you to reflect on. What else can we do in the next 10 years or so to really go the next mile, if you like?
Yeah, and I think it's just that, Anton. I think it is about developing partnerships that are based on mutual trust and respect, and with a clear understanding of what impact and what success for those partnerships will look like. I'm really delighted that we are delivering more with partners in the Global South, but also we are leveraging our international networks, and, you know, being a founding member of Universitas 21 and the Guild for European Research Intensive Universities, but more recently also becoming a member of Civic, the European University Alliance, I think is really crucially important, because through those collaborations we can unlock untold opportunities for our students, for our colleagues, and for the wider community that we serve here in Glasgow and beyond. So yeah, I'm excited to think about what the next chapter of internationalisation might look like for the University of Glasgow as well.
Yeah, and that won't stop.
It won't stop. It can't stop.
It can't stop next year. It's going to be one of the priorities going forward.
Yeah. Well, and actually maybe just linked to that, talking about the external environment, because there has been significant shifts externally that have impacted on the university's priorities and purpose. And maybe you can just say a little bit about some of what we are seeing happening in the external marketplace right now that are being kind of brought to bear on the university and what we do and how we do it.
Yes, and look, this matters hugely for universities like Glasgow that are major civic and global institutions. And actually, what I would say to colleagues, because of course any volatility in the external environment can make you feel concerned, but we've been through two major shocks. You know, we've been through Brexit, which dislocated a lot of our international work. We were a major hub attracting continental European students, and that was affected by Brexit negatively. We had COVID, when we had to navigate through a really difficult time when people couldn't travel, our students couldn't travel to us. So what I would say to people is, first of all, volatility in the external environment is part of what universities have always had to cope with. But at the moment it's an interesting time. Clearly there's a big debate in the UK, which has not been helpful in many respects around international students and the visa regime, which the government as we speak is considering in terms of the post-study work visa. I, as you know, and you have been advocates, and our whole university have been advocates for positive messaging in this area. You know, the UK is one of the major hubs for international education around the world. We could be the best. We could be the best in the world. And actually, policy could thwart us in this area. And I will continue, not only over the next year, but beyond that, to be an advocate for UK international education. So that's, you know, that's impacting on us because, and we're already seeing a number of universities in the UK making cuts because, as we know, international education is an important way in which universities fund everything that they do, from research to innovation to home education. So that's, to me, is clearly a concern. But one thing, just to conclude this point, I want to reassure colleagues, actually the University of Glasgow is in a really strong financial position. We have seen a lot of negativity around the sector in the UK over the last few months, with many universities having to make economies and cuts, and we are not in that position. We've managed over the last 10, 15 years to really develop a very strong financial framework, which has seen us through COVID, Brexit, and I'm convinced will see us through the next 2 or 3 years as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the optimism, and it's really reassuring, Anton, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, kind of going further out into the future, what do you hope the University of Glasgow can deliver and achieve over the course of the next 10 years and beyond? So,
how long have you got? I've got a long list. I mean, I think in terms of research, I think we can achieve a huge amount. We're in the process of developing Glasgow Changing Futures as a concept, looking at genuine interdisciplinary research across our 4 colleges. This will lead us in and will be part of our strategy towards the Research Excellence Framework in 2029. Through our Glasgow Riverside Innovation District, where we had very little presence in innovation, we've suddenly become one of the leading universities in Scotland and the UK around innovation. So I look forward to seeing GRID develop through not only developments in Govan, but also on Church Street, where we're developing our own innovation quarter. But beyond that, I'm also looking at the excitement of the learning and teaching strategy, where we're not only continuing to develop active learning, introducing it across the board, looking at ways in which we can bring professional skills to bear and make that a core part of what we do for students through internships, through international opportunities, international mobility opportunities. You have this ambition that we will eventually get to 50% of our students having an international experience. So much really to look forward to. But actually, I mean, let me turn the question around to you. What do you see happening in the next few years, next 10 years around transnational education, international partnerships? Because that's your bailiwick.
So yes, I mean, I think extending out our global footprint is going to be really important to the University of Glasgow and the communities that we serve, but also really important for our civic agenda. And there's work ongoing right now on developing a civic charter, a series of commitments that we will make to the community here locally in Glasgow and beyond. I think there are really exciting opportunities for the University of Glasgow. And I think, to reinforce a point that you've already made, we are coming from a position of real strength, I think, within the higher education sector. So I think there is much for us to build on with colleagues and with students. And, you referenced there the importance of the student experience and ensuring that actually we are providing a learning experience for students that will allow them to go on and change the world. We are developing the next generation of world changers, and that's enormously important. So yeah, I think a lot to look forward to, and looking at interdisciplinary collaboration with our partners, I think, is going to be a key element of that, most definitely. Now, we are very fortunate, I think, that as we search for your successor, we still have you in post for the next 18-month period. And I just wondered whether you might want to say a little bit about the kind of the focus for you and for the institution just over the course of the next year and a half in particular.
So, no, thanks, Rachel. And I think for us in the senior management group, I think the next 18 months will be actually critical. It was one of the reasons why when I said to colleagues that I was planning to step aside in 18 months, I have no intention of slowing down, and nor does the senior management group. This is going to be really intense 18 months. I've talked a bit about the external environment and how, in fact, there are huge challenges, which means that if you look at the UK international market for students, that is probably shrinking, which means we have to grab, what we can in terms of our share of that market. So we will be working on that. We'll be developing a new strategy, and the senior management group had its initial away day where it began to explore the dimensions of that strategy, which will be very much around the kind of things which we've discussed. So that is going to be really important. There's going to be a big decision to be taken around the beginning of phase 2 of our campus development, with the possibility of developing the Keystone building. Decision on that will come in September. And also, as I said, a number of developments around our innovation district, both on Church Street, but also the possibility around student accommodation. We've been looking at various options here in the West End. Many areas I think that we need to push on. In terms of international, I mean, you mentioned international partnership, and we want to create more of them. We want to expand our transnational education opportunities. So I know that's going to be a big focus for you over the next 12 to 18 months, and that will be a crucial period. And then finally, although this will stretch probably beyond the time when my successor will be in place, we've got a very ambitious Glasgow Green strategy around achieving net zero. Now, that is going to be challenging for us, as it is for all universities that are trying to achieve these kind of targets. But you cannot waste any time with these kinds of strategies. Every month involves taking decisions around sustainability. It's one of the reasons why I think the Keystone building is so exciting if we do go ahead, because it gets rid of potentially between 2/3 and 70% of our backlog maintenance in the university, making us much more efficient, much more effective. So look, this is not a time for to pause at all. And it's actually one of the reasons why actually our senior team is also staying in place beyond my time. And we've recently, congratulations on your reappointment till 2029. But beyond that, most of our senior team will be in place, which will mean that the transition will be very smooth. But I'm not slowing down over the next 18 months.
No option for that. And there is a huge amount of momentum actually across the senior management team and really focused on those initial priorities as you set out. I should also say that we will be celebrating next year the 850th anniversary of the City of Glasgow, and we're playing a really important role in that. But even more importantly, in 2026, it will be our 575th birthday. So a good excuse for a party, and we will certainly be looking at ways in which we can engage with our communities locally, nationally, globally during that period of time. I think both to celebrate what the university has delivered over the course of the last 25 years, but even more importantly, to look to the future as well and sort of set out our stall for what we hope to deliver going forward. So an exciting time ahead.
You planning to invite me back for 575?
Most definitely. Your invite is already in the post. And on that note, actually, since you've introduced it, I hope you don't mind me asking, but, at a personal level, what are your plans for the future?
And it's difficult, I think, to anybody who is planning to retire, in inverted commas. It's always difficult to give a comprehensive answer to that. But first of all, actually, in case people are wondering, I'm not planning to go to head up some other institution. I made it very clear that this was the end of my executive career, so to speak. I'll never say never, as James Bond might say, but I'm not planning to do that. I'm planning to stay in Glasgow. I've been discussing actually with colleagues in the business school whether I can stay on in an honorary capacity as a retired colleague who will hopefully help a bit with some of their activities. Economics is my home discipline, so I'm hoping to do more in public life, acting as an economics commentator, providing policy advice if and where that's welcome. I will probably take on some non-exec or charity type positions, but it will not be the same. What I will say is that I will be a huge supporter for the university in whatever I do. So, the fact that I'm not going far away means that, for instance, I'm regularly invited to go and speak in Asia around economic issues. So I'll be wearing the Glasgow badge and speaking on Glasgow's behalf or advertising Glasgow University. So I'll continue to do that.
Indeed, you will continue to fly the flag, of course. I am sure you will be in huge demand, Anton. But as you mentioned, you're also an alum of the University of Glasgow, so there really is no escape. Yeah. You will always be part of Team UFG forevermore. And maybe just finally, what do you think you'll miss the most about being Principal and Vice-Chancellor at the University of Glasgow?
Oh gosh, well, I want to say I'll miss the people, and that's absolutely true, but I'm kind of hoping I won't miss the people because I'm not planning to go anywhere. But look, it's been the sort of the sort of highest privilege I've ever had to be given the opportunity to lead this institution. I've said this before, it's a bit like in sport or in football, having somebody being the manager of a football club that they played for. It's a totally different feeling. I don't think it's the same when you head up an institution where you haven't been an alum or you've had a very brief association. For me, this was very much about coming back to a university that had given me everything. I'll tell you a short story, but which you may or may not know. I actually started studying elsewhere in the UK, a different subject. And then actually Glasgow I came back to after I decided to change a course. And actually Glasgow gave me a second chance at higher education. So for me, it's actually a really important thing that Glasgow gave me, which is an opportunity to study what I wanted. It gave me a second chance, a second start in higher education as an 18-year-old. So for me, that is hugely meaningful, and I'm going to miss. I'd like to say that I'm going to miss the university, but I'm hoping I won't miss it because I'll be able to be here and enjoy parts of it. But it's been fantastic to be a member of this senior management team, and I will continue to follow the fortunes of the senior team, albeit from a very different position.
Yeah, well, Anton, we will certainly miss you, but hopefully not too much, because you will still be with us and supporting the work of the university. Thank you so much for your time today and for being so candid and sharing your insight and reflections as Principal and Vice-Chancellor of the University of Glasgow. We're hugely grateful. Thank you very much.